Hey, hi. Welcome. Here we are. Just Dubs. Good Saturday morning to you. YouTube only edition. Warriors get a win last night. Steph Curry's back. Wasn't really pretty. And the road trip continues for Golden State as they go from New Orleans to San Antonio before Memphis and the Lakers. And the games really start coming fast and furious here now for the remaining 2 weeks. Kyle Haar joining me here for the YouTube only edition, as he does for all of the radio editions as well, and Dubs OT last night. Kyle, good to be with you, my friend. Warriors get the win. We don't rate wins on Just Dubs or Dubs OT. It wasn't really a work of art, but they found a way to get the job done and move on to the next one.
Yeah, good morning, and good morning to the chat. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. You want them to come out of the gate a little bit more motivated and excited and to execute at a higher level, but we will take the win. They needed that one. Steve Kerr put it was the most important game of the season.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. We talked about this last night, and I really thought they were trying last night, which I don't know if that's more alarming than, like, there are games where they've come out and you're thinking, geez, they just don't, like, they're not putting in the effort. They don't have the energy. They're not defending, whatever it may be. They're not trying to execute their offense. I thought last night they were trying to do all those things and they were just getting cooked, which maybe is in some ways a little more alarming for the big picture. I think at times we do get lost in this debate about just what it should look like consistently. And I still think there are times where Warrior fans are thinking of it in kind of the pre-COVID dominant terms, where it's like this team's just going to flip the switch and have their way with any team that is in front of them. And look, the Pelicans were down a ton of talent last night. I mean, it just, and honestly, I mean, you look at Murphy and McCollum and Zion and, like, I mean, everybody who was not out there on the court for New Orleans. I mean, really, if any one of those guys had been playing last night, the Warriors probably would have been in a close game down the stretch. Although, as has been part of the problem, maybe if Zion's playing, you get a better Draymond Green game. You get a better, because he knows he's got to try to slow him down some. So I do think night to night motivation is part of this. But I thought last night they just couldn't execute effectively, and they were getting all these wide open threes. They're missing all of them. The Pelicans are kind of doing their thing on the other end, out executing the Warriors. But I mean, I think this team has a level they can still reach. But I also think there are times in this stretch, even as great as it's been with Jimmy Butler in the fold, I think there have been times where they've reached back for something and it just hasn't been there. And I think that's something we have to keep in mind with an older team on the one end, but also an inexperienced team on the other end. They still have not a lot of guys who are really in the middle. You've got Steph, you've got Draymond, you've obviously got Jimmy. And I think one of the questions surrounding him is, does he still have even what he did 2 years ago in terms of being able to just go get buckets and score and finish, even when he's not getting fouled at a high clip? We'll see. I mean, he said he'll be ready when the time comes. I'm not going to rule it out, the emergence of playoff Jimmy or play-in Jimmy or whatever it needs to be until they actually get there. But you've got that group, the Steph, Dre, Jimmy Butler group. And then if you flip it, you've got the Podziemski, Moody, Kuminga, Quentin Post group. And they all, depending upon the night, and look, Podziemski and Moody have been pretty good for the most part up until the last handful of games. I thought Kuminga was pretty good last night. We discussed that. But they all have not been playoff performers in their own right, mostly because they haven't had the opportunity to be. But there are not a lot of middle ground guys on this Warriors team in terms of the rotation. It's guys like Looney Peyton. It's guys like that. But it's a lot of extremes. It's a lot of guys that are a little older, and it's a lot of guys that just don't have the experience. And I think if you're looking for things big picture that could be problematic in a play-in or a playoff series, I think it could have the potential to be that.
Yeah, and the thing that I guess now I'm worried about Pods and Moody, let's say, yeah, we do get into a 7-game series, and let's say that game goes to 6 or 7 games. How many of those games are they going to give you what you saw when the Warriors were winning with Jimmy Butler, which was your 14 to 15 points at a pretty efficient rate? But then how many games are they going to give you where they go 2 for 8, 2 for 9, 3 for 10, and go like 1 for 6 from 3? And I think in those games, the Warriors are when the Warriors aren't hitting their shots, and I hate it, and I hate to put it as simply as that, when the Warriors role players aren't going to hit their shots, it's going to take Steph Curry to really carry this offense. And I don't know how many games he could do that in the 7-game series. I'm sure he could win you at least maybe 2 of those games, but in a 6 or 7-game series, when you need to win 4, I don't know if they have enough consistency from their other players to win that series, so depending on who they go against.
And I was looking at some of the shooting stats the other day, and Moody and Podziemski specifically, I think Quentin Post was actually better on the road if I remember correctly, but it was Podziemski and Moody, basically their shooting at home is significantly better than it has been on the road, and so it's kind of the old role players play better at home kind of a thing. And so, how many of those games, like I think in a 6-7 game series, let's say, where you're getting 3 games, maybe 4, although I think the Warriors are going to have, it also shows why I think the play-in is problematic, because it's a one-off. And we saw this last year in Sacramento. I mean, the Warriors felt pretty good about where they were at. I mean, they were hot last year. They were 27-12 in the last 39 games. Sacramento was not really. Like, they kind of had some guys banged up and really didn't finish the year well. And they ended up with the same record. And the Warriors just did not, Clay couldn't hit a shot, and Steph was getting triple teamed. And it was, really the first time that Sac had kind of deployed that anybody but Steph kind of defense. And they were overwhelmed by it. And it was fascinating to see, because it was less than a year at that point removed from when the Warriors had gone in there, won a game 7, won a game 5 in a 2-2 series in that kind of environment. But it was apparent. I mean, Trace Jackson Davis was starting. And again, not to single him out, he had played well down the stretch. Trace Jackson Davis was awful. Like, and it was the difference between TJD getting the opportunity over, say, Kevon Looney, who had gotten the opportunity a year prior to that. We always talk about the fact that Kuminga had played so well down the stretch last year to get himself in position to be in the rotation, and then was pretty bad. But they got other players back, and his role shifted to where it was more of that kind of like it is right now. You're not going to get the 30 to 35 minutes a game. And he didn't play well in that game. And Moody didn't really play well in that game. And Pods didn't play well. It was a lot of those guys. Look, Clay was terrible in that game, and Steph was stymied, and Chris Paul didn't do much. Like, it was an all systems fail kind of a game. But I just remember thinking, wow, a lot of these young guys weren't ready. And for a one-off. And I remember Steve Kerr after the game saying, well, if this was a playoff series, it would be all right. We got our ass kicked, and we felt what the opposition could bring. And now you adjust, and now and now you have that emotional lift that comes with, well, there's no game 2, you're going home. And so I think that is the variance in terms of the consistency of the young players, like they're going to need multiple games to get worked into it and get comfortable. And I think that's something that, as I was thinking from last night to tonight or today, and with what's remaining in the schedule, because the big debate is get the 6 versus, is it maybe better to be 7? And if you play the Rockets, and look, you just got to get in. But I think that's a vote, Kyle, for just get in. And make sure you're in. And if you play Denver or the Lakers or somebody, so be it.
Yeah, I mean, I would much rather take my odds in a 7-game series against Denver than having to go through the play-in and let's say, yeah, sure. Let's say, yeah, you're the 7th seed. You get that first home playing game against, let's just say how the seeding shakes out now, and the Timberwolves remain the 8, and you play the Timberwolves, and now let's say you lose that game, but then you won the second game. Well, now you're the 8th seed, and now you're playing Oklahoma City for 7, which I do not like our odds in.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's like, yes, I guess the upside is that you can face the Rockets, who, yeah, we would like to play as that 2-7 matchup. But the downside is, one, you could not even make the playoffs. You could just be eliminated right there and then. And then the other downside is that, yeah, you would be the 8th seed facing the Thunder.
And again, I think the Warriors at that point would take it. I think the Warriors would. The Rockets would be a team they'd certainly want to face. I mean, the Grizzlies might even be a team they'd prefer to face over the Rockets now with the head coaching stuff and Taylor Jenkins getting surprisingly fired yesterday. I think, crazy as it sounds, I think Oklahoma City probably would be 3rd on the list if you were looking at a pecking order of, who do you want to play. I think one is probably still Houston, 2 is Memphis. I would say 3 is Oklahoma City. And then we can have the debate about who you'd least like to play. I think it's clearly Denver or the Lakers. I know I infamously had said in that debate that I would think that you'd want to play Denver over the Lakers with Luka and LeBron. But then Denver went in without a couple of their regulars, Murray and Jokic, and won at Chase a couple of weeks ago. And the Warriors have not, as our buddy LA Night Stalker chimes in, have not beaten Denver since the 22 playoffs. But I still think, again, there's 3 teams you'd rather play above those other teams, but you don't want to be in that elimination situation if you can avoid it. And the truth is, you could very quickly be in it if you're playing Minnesota and then playing the Clippers. And then either one of those games you lose, and all of a sudden you're in a position where it's an elimination game against somebody. And again, you'd feel good about playing the Kings. You'd feel good about playing this version of Dallas potentially. You'd feel good about playing maybe Phoenix. Although I'd be a little weird about Phoenix with Booker and KD in an elimination game. Like I don't know that. I know the Suns have had a horrible season, and at times they look like they don't even care. Started to get it together a little bit in the last couple of weeks, and then Boston destroyed them. But I mean, that's a team like, God, you're playing for the 8th seed in an elimination game, and you're facing Booker and Durant. I mean, that's dangerous in its own right. So I think you want to avoid it. Tony Smith there in the chat. Warriors struggle with size, so no Lakers or Nuggets, but no play-in. Pathetic in the play-in. Yeah, I mean 0-3 in the play-in. Again, 2021 pre-championship year, the 2 losses there. I mean, I think this team is better than that team, to be sure. That 39-33 team in the 72 game COVID shortened year, and then last year again. I think everybody thought the Warriors were going to Sacramento and winning last year. Now they were going to have to win again to get in, but I mean, they finished 27-12 last year, and then it was just like a completely different team. And they had some injuries if you remember, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, like Kuminga got hurt and then TJD went into the starting lineup and TJD was playing well. And so they kind of kept that. And then it just, they were not really the team. They were not the best version of themselves, I think, due to a couple of injuries there. But I mean, I don't think it would have mattered on that night. But again, this team's better than that team. This team has a clear-cut number 2. This team has much more of a quality defensive identity. And let's be honest, the young players are playing at a better level this year as compared to last year. But you're also going to potentially play better teams in the play-in type situation if you wind up in that position. So, all right, just Dubs here. JD, Kyle Haar on a Saturday morning. Appreciate everybody watching on YouTube, and more comments here as we'll keep this thing going until probably about 11 o'clock, go about an hour. We are going to be back tomorrow on KNBR and, of course, on YouTube after the Warriors face the Spurs. And next week on Saturday, Giants are playing later in the evening, so we're going to be back with a full 2-hour show on the radio and on YouTube and Twitch and all of that next Saturday from 10 a.m. until noon. Jimbo, no place for JK on this team. Kerr prefers small, unathletic shooters who can fit into his small ball system. I don't disagree with parts of the second half of that. I mean, he does like shooters who can fit the small ball system. I just think we're making too much of this Kuminga thing. Like it doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be he's dominant or he has to go. It may come down to he has to go, but I certainly don't think we're there yet. And there is a place for Kuminga. I mean, you saw last night a place for Kuminga on this team to come in and to get buckets at the rim and to put pressure on the defense and to get to the free throw line and to defend. Not a perfect game defensively for him last night by any stretch, but to me, it's about intent and it's about energy and it's about shot selection. And he took a bad 3 last night. Okay, it happens. His field goal percentage wasn't great. He got blocked at the rim on one by Missy, but he got to the line and they needed him to score. What did he end up with? 16 points, 16, 18 points, whatever it was. And they needed it. And yeah, 16 on 9 shots. I mean, that's all right. The free throws made it a more efficient night than it would have been. I think maybe you don't take one of those 2 threes. Okay, big deal. You end up 5 of 8 instead of 5 of 9. I don't think that's anything to quibble about. But there is a place for JK on this team. It's just as a role player, and and I think that's the part where people struggle. The other part of the debate, Kyle, is it going to become more necessary for this team to add one more shooter? It goes back to do you trust Moody? Do you trust Pajemski? Do you trust Quentin Post? And if that is the reason the Warriors get beat, how do they go get? Because it's not just you don't need a Buddy Hield shooter like that. I want to make that very clear. It's like you don't need a bench shooter necessarily. Like, you don't need a guy that just the only thing he does is shoot. You need a starting player. Or a starting capable player, a top 6-7 type player. Maybe he doesn't start because of the build of your team or anything like that. But you need a guy who's a capable. It's not just shooting for shooting's sake. It's a guy who can actually get out there and play both ends and is kind of a proven starter in the NBA or a proven top 6-7 guy in the NBA. And the thing that it comes down to for me is how do you get that guy? And I think that's where obviously Kuminga, I think would become expendable. And I think we have to at this point. I say we. I don't mean. I think the Warriors at this point. I mean, I'm already there in terms of my opinion of it. I think the Warriors have to be open to accepting the fact that they may not trade Jonathan Kuminga for a star. It's like they already went and got the guy. Like the whole part of the not including Kuminga, like you're not trading Kuminga unless you're getting Durant. Not trading Kuminga unless you're getting Giannis. Not trading Kuminga unless you're getting a star. They I think at one point would have included him in a Jimmy Butler deal, but they didn't have to because Jimmy Butler tanked his value with Miami because of everything that was going on between him and the front office and the contract and all of that. Like he devalued Jimmy Butler devalued his own trade worth to a point where they didn't have to put Kuminga in the deal for him. But if this was just a trade with a happy Jimmy Butler and the Heat were looking to quietly trade him a year ago, you may have had to have done that. So I think that to me is what it comes down to. It's the acceptance. And I think the Warriors would be more open to that because I think now they would believe that they truly are one player away and maybe not, and not a star player away, but one player away from being able to be a legitimate contender if they prove to not be already, which again, I think it's more likely than not. We don't know for sure, but I think it's more likely than not this team doesn't quite have enough to win a title or even get to a finals, but we'll have to see how it shakes out with some of the matchups and whether these young guys are able to hit shots. I think that's going to be the number one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I would say going back to the Jimmy Butler trade, I mean, earlier on, when Jimmy Butler's value was a little bit higher, I mean, we were talking about the Warriors having to trade both Wiggins and Kuminga and probably a first-round pick to get Jimmy Butler. And the fact that you were able to keep Kuminga, I mean, granted he was injured, so it was harder to trade him. But the fact that you were able to still acquire Jimmy Butler and keep Kuminga, I mean, that goes a long way. And you're able to evaluate if when Kuminga got back, if he can fit in the system. And I think so far, I think it is clear that there are too many lineups where they don't have enough shooting on the court. And the shooters that they do have, and I really only point to maybe like two guys, even though Buddy Hield has been hit or miss this season, it would be Buddy Hield, Quinn Post. I mean, and then alongside Curry. But then again, it's like how many minutes can you actually play Quinn Post and Buddy Hield? And then when you get into the playoffs, I mean, I really can't see them playing as much as they have in the regular season just because of their lack of defense. So I think, yeah, in the offseason, I think it is apparent that they need to get that shooter that can also play defense, and that's quality. That is a guy that you could put in to the starting lineup.
I thought it was interesting last night when Kuminga was in the game, and this was both first quarter and third quarter. He comes in kind of middle of the first, middle of the third. And Steve's making other subs. I think there was a concerted effort last night to put more shooting on the floor with Kuminga. I think they tried some other lineups where they haven't. And it hasn't. I know your point is not only the Kuminga lineups, but it made me think of it because I had it marked in my notes, and I don't think we got to it last night. Kuminga comes in middle of the quarter, and then immediately he comes in with Guy Santos in the first quarter. So you're getting a little more shooting from Guy, obviously, compared to Kuminga. You're getting that another hustle energy guy that kind of offsets the fact that Kuminga doesn't always bring that. He's out there at that point, he's out there with Steph for a few minutes. So it's Steph with Guy Santos, Kuminga. Then Hield and Quentin Post come in. So you've got Kuminga out there, Kyle, but he's out there the first 3 minutes of his stint with Steph and Buddy and Quentin Post and Guy Santos was the other, and then Podziemski and Jimmy Butler ended up coming back. So he plays about 3 minutes with Steph, plays about 3 minutes with Jimmy Butler, but it was Butler came in for Guy. So then and Podziemski came back. So it was Podziemski with Jimmy, couple playmakers come back in, but then he still got Post and Buddy Hield out there. So at one point it was basically 3.5 shooters out there with him. And then it was Jimmy out there with him with Pajemski to try to create, but you still had Buddy and Quentin Post out there. It's tough, I think, at times because you want to put shooting out there. But I mean, really, who are the 3 shooters on the Warriors roster?
Right.
It's Steph, it's Buddy, and it's Quentin Post. I mean, if you're just saying shooters, right? Like those are the – and so I think when you look at it from that standpoint, they have other guys who can make shots, but they don't have shooters. But to that point on the shooting – they were really going out of their way to try and, I think, open the floor up for Kuminga to be able to attack and get to the basket and be able to play at the rim.
Can I? Did you see Danny Emmerman's tweet about Jimmy Butler and Kuminga sharing the court, like what their plus minus is?
I did not. I did not.
No, I found this interesting, and I think I saw a similar tweet the other day, just like Kuminga with who, like Kuminga with Curry, and with Kuminga with Curry plays a lot better.
Yes,
let me tell you. But
he does.
So Jimmy Butler and Jonathan Kuminga have shared the court for 76 minutes. The Warriors have a negative 18.1 net rating in those minutes and have been outscored by 28 points.
That's not good.
No, not good. So yeah, I think that goes back to, just like, I mean, even if you go and put a Quinn Post and a Buddy Hield and I don't know, like a Pods or even Steph, it's like how much shooting do you actually have out there? And I think it is hard to play Kuminga and Butler because, like, even though you would want Kuminga to be like a GP2 and the way that GP2 can backdoor cut and cut off the weak side, and Jimmy Butler finds him that way. We just haven't seen that with the Butler and Kuminga lineups. So I think overall thought they're like Butler and Kuminga on the court together. I don't think there's players in the Warriors roster that you could put out there and you have enough shooting.
Well, and I think that also is an indicator that, Kuminga maybe can't be a finishing player for this team. So it kind of comes back. I look at, if you look offensively at it and look at to this point, I think it's still a little bit of a small sample, but I think to this point, I've been wrong. Because it hasn't looked as nearly as fluid other than the Sacramento game. I thought last night was the next closest thing to how it would look in terms of helping them win. But if you look at Jimmy and the way he creates for others, often what is it? Like he's kicking out for threes. He's kind of putting his head down and he's kicking out for three. And that just does not, like, that's not Kuminga's game, right? I mean, that's the Moses Moody, the Quentin Post, Buddy, if he's out there with them, Steph, like it's just, he's kicking out, he's keeping it moving. And that really is not, and I think they do tend to operate in the same areas on the court. So one of them is going to have to be just just almost completely out of the play if the other one's got the ball. And then you're basically taking turns, which isn't, you're taking turns in isolation, which I don't think necessarily works. So they are trying to figure out, I think, the right lineup combinations. And clearly, I think the way that they've set it up, they clearly did not believe that Kuminga and Jimmy were going to play well together. Like, because they have intentionally tried to not do it a lot. And when they have done it, now we have the data there from Danny Emmerman that it has not worked, at least to this point. So you can kind of see why they're not trying it. And it also, I think, leads to where the only nights that they're going to finish games together are nights where Kuminga is really playing well in the lead up to it. Right? Like nights where nights where it's just like he's in a rhythm and he's doing his thing and he's a bad matchup for the opposition and you're rolling him out there. at that point. Joke's on you, JD. Do they need a shooter or do they need a shot creator to get them better shots? I think it's shooting. I think they're getting good shots. I just think they're not, as time is going on, hitting them as consistently. And I think they will go back to having a stretcher between now and the end of the year, whether it's some of the home games or whether it's just law of averages. I do think they're going to bounce back and start hitting some shots again. I mean, there was the stretch where Pods and Moody were shooting it great, and the Warriors looked unbeatable. So no, I think it's shooter, but it's not. Again, it's not the Buddy Hield type shoot. It's not just a guy who only shoots. They need a two-way guy. They need a rotation guy. You know, they need. Let's be honest. They need a GP in either the GP or Kuminga slot. They need a guy that can knock down a three and defend and keep it moving. Again, a starting caliber kind of a player. Like, that's how you get better. So no, I think it's somebody to where when you kick it out to him, he fits in the offense because he's a threat to knock down that shot. And when he knocks down that shot, it opens everything else for everybody. Florida Dubs fan, going forward, Warriors have to try to avoid one-way players. Too many of those. Yeah, that's spot on. I mean, it just that you start to pencil, for now, and again, it's subject to change, right? Steph, Pajemski, Jimmy, Draymond, Quentin Post, Moody. I think all those guys project to be on the team next year. And then you start getting into, GP, defensive guy. Kuminga is kind of a wild card, right? Like, at times he's a good defensive guy, at times he's not, at times he's a good offensive guy, at times he's not. Like, he's just but uber talented, obviously. He's a we don't know. I mean, let's be honest, he's going to be a restricted free agent. So he goes in the we don't know category. But Kyle, how many guys is that? Like, how many guys are we like for sure? I mean, it's like 6, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, GP2, Quinn Post, Buddy Hield, right?
I mean, they're probably on the. I mean, Buddy's probably on the team. I don't know that GP's on the team next year.
I was thinking of one-way players.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, two separate things they're colliding. But no, that's true. Yeah, Quint. No, but it's also like you're not keeping it. Looney, defense and rebounding. Looney would be another one. We don't know if Looney's going to be there. I mean, I guess he's two-dimensional, but not offense and defense. Douglas Mikes, good to see Douglas Mikes in the chat here. Love GP2, but if we bring him back next season for more than vet minimum, I'll eat my hat. Yeah, I think he and Looney are both in that category. I know we were talking a couple of weeks ago, Kyle. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they did try to keep both of them as depth, but it's not every night depth. Like we've seen, like GP's going to get hurt. He's going to miss time here. Like, he's great when he's around and he's able to be capable from 3-point range, but you can't count on GP2 for a whole year. And so you need to build a roster around that. You don't want to play Looney every game the whole year. And so you need to build your roster around that. Two guys that I think you want, and I think GP is a playoff performer when he's healthy, but you have to have other guys who can step in and be able to play in some of these situations where GP's out. You just need more guys that are bona fide, clear cut rotation players. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Warriors do look to keep GP and Looney. But yeah, I think they will both be veteran minimum players. And look, they're both players that the Warriors could have shipped off GP last offseason. They could have thrown him in a trade. They could have figured out a way to get off of his $9 million. They didn't, in part because I think Steve Kerr wanted him to be there. And I think it's the same thing with Looney. They could have cut Looney and brought him back for less. I think he had $8 million on the books. They could have given him $3 million and then maybe brought him back for the minimum and sorry, Kavan, if you want to come back, it's going to be $5 million instead of $8 million. Like, they could have kind of nickel and dimed him a little bit. They didn't do that. They settled in on the $8 million. They kept them. I think Some would tell you they told him they weren't going to trade him. And, all right, you do that for this year, then that those are the kinds of things that, all right, next year you're a little bit more harsh about it because you kind of gave, hey, we got you that extra $3 million this year, so now it's going to have to be the minimum for next year. GP, we kept you, we didn't send you to the Wizards, so to get your $9 million. So next year it might have to be 2.5 to 3, whatever the veteran minimum is.
Yeah, and probably with Gary Payton's injury history now, I can't imagine a team paying him that much money, because how many games are you going to get a healthy Gary Payton during an 82 game season?
No, it's just you're not, and so I think that's going to be a huge part of it. But you have to have others that can step in and just be guys that are going to play. Tony Smith, how many games you reckon we will win from the remaining 9 games? 9 games to go. Injuries obviously can change this. I would say, you got to win against San Antonio. That's one. I think they've got a shot to win in Memphis if they care about it. Again, they still can get to 5 or even technically, I guess, 4. Although we were talking about last night. Memphis has the Lakers, Celtics, and Warriors next 3. So the Warriors, they are 2 back of Memphis. If you beat them head to head, you're 1 back. If they lose to the Lakers and you beat San Antonio, you're tied with them. Right straight up there. And if they lose to the Celtics, you could be a half game up. If Memphis loses to the Warriors and loses those other 2 games, the Warriors beat San Antonio, you go from 2 back to a half game up by Tuesday night for 5th. Now the Clippers could be continuing to make up ground there as well and be in the mix, but you could be ahead of Memphis by that point. And so I think it's going to be interesting what Memphis's motivation is. I think that actually shakes out really well for the Warriors. I know playing in Memphis has not been a picnic for them over the years, but I think, again, if that's the kind of game they go in there and they're like, damn, we want to get to 5 or try to still get to 4 in the last 2 weeks here, and they're motivated to do it, then I think that's a game that they could be in real good shape in. Then it gets tough. I can't pick them to beat Denver at this point because they haven't done it. The Lakers, obviously, before that, and then Houston. So 1, 2, 3. Then you're playing Phoenix and San Antonio, 4, 5. Those have got to be wins. I think Portland's got to be a win. I think 6 to 7 is the number, and we'll see. It's a tough schedule, I think, to get 7. But it's 7 of the final 9. But I think that's what it's going to have to be. I think if you look at Memphis, the Lakers, Denver, I'm not even going to throw Houston in there. I'm going to throw the Clippers last game of the year in there. Those 4, I think if you split those 4 and win all the rest of the other ones, I think that's what it boils down. That's how you go 7-2. But you have to beat Phoenix. You have to beat the Spurs. You have to beat Portland. You have to beat San Antonio again. You get San Antonio twice in the last 9, so you got to win both of those. So that to me is how you get to 7-2, and then you let the chips fall where they may.
Let's say they go 1-3, but they win that Clipper game, which could decide a lot of things. Would you take that?
Well, it depends on what it gets you. Right. Some of them are more important. I think the Clipper game's more important. I think the Memphis game's more important. Among that group of games, I think those games are more important than the Laker Denver games. Although I think from a confidence standpoint, the Warriors are never going to be unconfident, but it's funny. I think those are the lesser of the 2 in terms of importance for the standings. But I also want to see the Warriors play the Lakers and play Denver. And I want to see what the matchups look like. It's that was the big disappointment, even though Denver asserted their continued dominance over the Warriors without Jokic and Murray. But I want to see what it looks like, because I think the Warriors were amped up to face that team, and then it was a letdown 90 minutes before the game. They find out that those guys are not going to be playing, and I think it led to the unmotivated effort for the Warriors, unfortunately. So I think that's, I hope we get a chance to see it. It's weird with the back-to-back, and it's weird with the Warriors coming off the long road trip. Even though it's LA the night before. So who knows if there's a game where maybe the Warriors sit some guys out and we don't see what we want to see from it. It could be one of those games, although I believe they're both nationally televised games. So technically you're not supposed to do that for those games. But I hope that we do get a chance to see those games with both teams playing full bore here next week.
I really hope it doesn't come down to like last game of the season and or we end the season and we're just like, oh my God, if we just won that game in Utah where we were up 11 with 2.
Won that game in Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
One more chat here.
EB here. Warriors don't have any rim protectors. All the teams that they have trouble with do. That's a fair point. I think that's also an area to add to the list, but the offseason list. There's nothing you can do about it now. I think that's an area to add to the offseason list. But how do you get that? I think is, to me, that would almost have to be the Looney spot, right? If you're going to, or maybe you go with, maybe it's the TJD spot. Maybe it's, you're keeping Quentin Post and, you're going to play Draymond at center. And if you keep Looney, you could have Looney as you can go 3 centers and Draymond on the roster, with Quentin Post obviously being one of them, maybe Looney being the other. But then the third has to be somebody that I think is a little bit more of a rim protector. Although, again, I think with the way the Warriors rotate, they're just not, that player just is not going to be somebody who plays every game. And you're also not going to wedge that player in because you're playing another team that has more rim protectors. So it's like EB, you're not wrong, but I just don't you're not going to go find that player at the expense of other things. Maybe if it's like Miles Turner, and he can shoot threes and defend at the rim, but there are, how many Miles Turner type players are there? How many, it's a rare skill set to have somebody that basically is that interior shot blocker that is comfortable just standing out on the 3-point line and basically trying to be Quentin Post offensively. So I think, that the other thing is, even if you could work out a way to get a guy like Miles Turner, he's going to want to get paid. And he's also, it's tricky too, because Miles Turner, somebody's going to want to play 30 minutes a game, 35 minutes a game. And I just don't think the Warriors are going to view that center spot ever as somebody that's going to play 35 minutes a game, because you're going to want to close small and have Draymond on the court and play in the 5. We'll see. I think that could change depending upon what they do with Kuminga. And I'm just trying to pencil projected lineup, closing lineups. If the Warriors go get that shooter, and we'll just make it official. We'll go Cam Johnson alert. We'll sound the sirens. If you go, because I do think it's similar. If you did go get, let's say you traded Kuminga for Cam Johnson. Let's just hypothetically say that's what it is in the offseason. Then your closing lineups become Steph, Moody or Pajemski, Jimmy, Cam, Draymond. Now that is the balance of offense, defense, ball movement, shooting. That's you got action. You got action there. Now you're still small, but it's a 6'8" guy, it's a 6'7" guy, it's Draymond, it's Moody potentially or Pods. You give yourself a little room there. You can go with whoever's playing well on a given night between the two. Take a little bit off of Pod's plate. Like, to me, that's like you're not wondering if Cam Johnson can finish games with Draymond and Jimmy Butler. Like, you're not wondering about it because his number one skill is he's going to hit 3 or 4 out of every 7. He's getting 3 out of every 7 threes, and so I think that's the type of move. It's a guy who's a wing, who's a starting player, and can have that type of a skill set and impact on the game, moving forward here. Erwin Kwong, TJD can't pour kibble into a bowl. Thus, he's in the outhouse, much less the doghouse. Yeah, we'll see.
TJD.
I mean, we'll see. I don't think his career is over. He's on a very affordable contract. So we'll see how it all shakes out with TJD, but I think they do at this point need a different skill set. I think at that position but they have a couple of spots open. Again, Looney's a free agent. We don't know how that's going to shake out. It's funny. I think among the centers that are not Draymond, I mean, Quentin Post is the one that's the most solid and like for sure on the team and is going to have a role next year. And then again, I think you can go Looney or TJD. I don't think you can go both. I think Looney's veteran leadership and locker room presence is more important at this point. I think his skill set's more important. Screen setter, passer. If you had to play Looney in some situations, it would be fine. And we've seen it be fine. So I think TJD winds up probably being the odd man out if the Warriors look to go get one more different type of big to throw into the mix. But he's also somebody that doesn't make a lot of money, so it's not like you're trading him for somebody straight up or anything like that. I mean, he would almost have to be a throw in another deal at that point. EB here, TJD. How could you be in the league this long and not develop any type of shot? I know that's been the one thing that he's said, I think even recently, that he's going to really already has started working on behind the scenes and will continue to in the offseason is shooting, try and be more of a maybe pick and pop kind of a guy, try to develop a 3-point shot. We'll see. How hard is it to bank a basketball from 6 feet? Yeah. I mean, forget about the 3 ball. It's just being able to finish around the basket or at the rim, which has been problematic when he doesn't dunk it. Evil Dubs and okay, I will go on a limb. They will make the play-in, not the playoffs. Clippers and Wolves will swallow them up. Odds of that happening. Wow. It is on the table, although you're probably not going to have to play both of them. That's the one thing I will say. Make the play-in. Again, Clippers and Wolves, one of those two are going to be 6. And if the scenario exists where the Warriors make the playoff or make the play-in and not the top 6, it will mean that the Clippers or the Timberwolves do make the top 6. So you're playing whoever doesn't make the top 6. So you would be in the 7-8 game against the Clippers or the Timberwolves. You wouldn't have to beat both of them. But you would play Dallas or Phoenix or somebody like that, Kings, if you don't win the first one against the Clippers or the Wolves. So you'd wind up in an elimination game. So I still think even if that happens, the Warriors would feel good about the second game against Phoenix or the Kings or whatever. But if they ended up not making the playoffs at all, like getting in the play-in and then we're evaluating all of the young guys at that point. Cause something will have had to have happened, sure. Injury, Steph's couldn't play, sprained an ankle, whatever. Jimmy, back spasms, couldn't play, that's the one thing I will say. Odds of that happening are one injury away. I mean, and we've seen it. And it just they're cooked. One of those guys are out in any of these games, they're cooked. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be on the table there. But I think if they end up healthy and don't make the playoffs and get to the play-in and lose, that's big trouble. That's we're looking at Pods, we're looking at Moody, we're definitely looking at Kuminga, and we're looking at those guys potentially being traded for some veteran players. Maybe not all of them, but I would say a couple of them at that point for veterans that can help this thing become more all in. Again, we should not forget that, and I think those players that we speak of have played well enough to this point to where it hasn't been a part of the conversation. But we've also basically for the last month believed that the Warriors are going to get in, and that it, not that it's a foregone conclusion, but just that they're going to play well enough to get in. And I still believe that. They're going to play well enough in my mind. They're going to play well enough to get in, whether it's 6 or 5, or if they have to play for 7 and get it, or 8, if it comes down to it. You don't want to be sweating it out playing for 8 in an elimination game. But I think if they had to do it, they should win. They would be the favorite if healthy in all those games. They would be the favorite over Phoenix. They'd be the favorite over the Kings. They'd be the favorite over Dallas. And so something weird would happen at that point for them to lose if they lose. And it would be a game changer. It would completely wipe away, everything that's happened to this point. And, the 10-0 with the starting lineup that they have, and whatever it is when they have, I lost count, Kyle, forgive me, whatever it is now with 17-3 with Jimmy and Steph, or 17-2, 17-3. Anyway,
17-3.
Yeah. We'll get it. I'll make sure I get it right when we get back tomorrow for Dubs OT. But, all of that would be completely wiped away, Kyle.
No, that would suck. But it goes back to, not too long ago, I think I said it, Copes was on this after the Warriors started winning, just saying how, the floor seemed like the 6th seed and the ceiling was the 4 or 5. But now, let's say, you have to go into the play-in and you don't make it out of the play-in. I think, you have to reevaluate the talent you have. And I think that just makes it easier of a decision to flip some of these young players.
Again, it's not something that that I think anybody really is thinking of right now, because I think everybody is playing well enough. And again, Kuminga's kind of in his own category because he's an unrestricted free agent that they're going to have to pay a lot, and he's going to want to get paid a lot and all of those kinds of things. So he's in a different category. And he's also trying to work his way back in and show how he fits on this completely, retooled team. So I think that's part of it. But right now it's more, I think that the onus is on what can these young guys do to help. And I think we're really, Kyle, in a natural progression right now with the young players. I know there's been, anytime this team loses, again, I think it's the 20, it's the dynasty syndrome where anytime this team, even without Steph, they lose a game without Jimmy in Philly, 4 weeks ago, and it's like, oh my God, everybody's freaked out. It's like, oh, they didn't have Jimmy. They're not very good. They didn't have Jimmy for 50 games and they weren't very good. It's not rocket science there. I know they've won some games without Steph this year, but let's be honest, that's a mirage. You take one of those guys away, it's just not a very good team. And they're just not also a dominant team. So I even when they have everybody, they're older, but I think the Warriors are in a natural progression right now in terms of Jimmy came in, infused life into all of this. They believe, Steph believes, Draymond believes, Jimmy believes. They have that core now, right? It's different. It's we'll see if Jimmy can be the dominant offensive force as time goes on. But the main guys believe that this team's got a high ceiling. That's the number one thing. Jimmy has also improved Pajemski and Moody and Quentin Post and all of that. And those guys in their own right were playing a little better. Before the trade, they've been even better. But now we're in the natural progression of you get these guys, the young guys specifically, who play well for a stretch, and then they don't. Well, guess what? You adjust. You know, it's the league adjusts to you. You play well. League adjusts to you. You adjust back. Like it's like it does. This doesn't mean that this thing's over. It means that you go through like the only way Quentin Post and Podziemski and Moody are going to be legitimate NBA rotation players on teams that can contend is if they deal with struggles and bounce back and have another really good stretch. And so I think that's where we are right now in terms of shooting slumps and poor play and figuring it out. I mean, it truly is. It's development and trying to, I don't want to say two timelines, but it's development and also trying to contend. And I don't want to hear any of the bullshit about, well, if Moody had played before. No, actually, if Kuminga, all these guys had played more minutes before. No, because they weren't playing meaningful minutes before. Like, these games are more meaningful than any games last year, any games 2 years ago. Like, you couldn't be messing around with any of that shit 2 years ago. Like, and they were winning a title 3 years ago. So none of that. I don't buy that. Like, these are the most important games that Moody's played in the regular season. Podziemski's played in the regular season. Maybe not Kuminga, but he's going to get his shot in the playoffs to play meaningful games and meaningful minutes and prove that he can do it. So I just think it's a natural point in the progression.
Yeah, and Trey, yeah, no, that's a good point. But yeah, Draymond put it perfectly last night. He was like, well, I'd rather us be shooting the ball poorly now than in a couple weeks in the playoffs. I was like, yeah, yeah. I mean, might as well go through these struggles now and really start gaining momentum here in these last 9 or so games, and having Moody and Pods and Post shooting the ball well in the playoffs. Because I really think, I mean, like, all in all, that is kind of what it comes down to. Like, can your role players make shots in the playoffs, or are they gonna, or is it gonna be well, what was that game? Sorry, or is it gonna be a Miami game? Right?
Yeah. Well, and Miami they're gonna get. Look, the defense is going to get ramped up in the in the playoffs. I think that benefits the Warriors on one hand, because I think they're going to be a rugged, dogged, fierce defensive team. Like, they are, that you think the Warriors have been able to win some ugly games here in the last couple of weeks. I mean, wait until you get into the playoffs. I mean, I think there's going to be, God, can you imagine if they're in the playoffs against Houston, in the playoffs against Memphis? I mean, some of the games, I know Memphis has had a pretty good offense this year, even with a lot of guys out. But I mean, I think these games are going to get extremely physical, and it may be first to 100, maybe first to 95 in some of these games. And who can do that? Who can do that? Who can be a part of that? Who can keep their head together and do enough other things to help you win games on a night where you're not shooting it well? Andis Brown in the chat here. Final couple of minutes on this Saturday. Just Dubs, JD, Kyle Haar here on KNBR on YouTube and Twitch. Andis, I think sometimes we want the young players to be a ready-made meal, but they're still in the cooking process. Well said. It's still development. We forget about it, but it is still development. And it's not two timelines necessarily or any of that. It's no, they need these guys to fill roles. I mean, two of them are starters right now. I mean, Quentin Post is a starter. He's if somebody's coming out of the lineup, Quentin Post is the guy who's going in the lineup at this point. So you've got Podziemski and Moody, who are starters. You've got, Kuminga, who's like the super sub. You've got Quentin Post, who's kind of fluctuating between the two, and they're all trying to figure it out here. But these are, I mean, it's Steph and it's Jimmy and it's Draymond, but the next most important players are those four guys, honestly. And sure, but that's not to say Buddy Hield can't do something here, or GP is going to be important. Looney, all those guys can be, but it really is, I think, the 4 young players that determine, the ceiling for this team. A couple more here, Kyle. We want to wrap it up. I think we're pretty close to wrapping it up here. Let's do a couple more in the chat.
Yeah, let's do a couple more.
Tony Smith, Curry and company need the young players to grow up quickly. Yeah, it's all about that. It's all about that development. It's all about understanding and bouncing back. It's about bouncing back from adversity. Simply put, Irwin, hindsight 2020, draft players, not projects. Wiseman project, Kuminga project, Moody player, Pods player. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty simple. I think that's why Moody and Pods are starting with Jimmy and Steph and Draymond, is because they just fit. They can do enough of everything to be able to fit. And yeah, the Warriors, I mean, again, we can't go back and relitigate, just like our LA Night Stalker. We're not going to go back and relitigate Jordan Poole. I mean, he's gone. We can't at this point go back and relitigate the draft picks. They made the picks. Wiseman was obviously a bust. Kuminga is somebody that I still think is an asset, whether it's to this team or to be put into a deal that gets the Warriors a player that can help put them over the top. That's still, I think, a high value. And Moody and Podziemski are solid players currently on this team. So I think if anything, we've noticed a shift in the Dunleavy era where they have been able to, I think, and Moody was a Bob Myers guy, but they have been able to develop, or they have been able to look to draft, whether it's Post and Podziemski, guys that fit specifically with what they're trying to do, as opposed to more of the project types. Yeah. And even if Moody wasn't a project, he kind of was a project, because he was, like, people forget, like, he was just as young as Kuminga. Like, it just, even though he had played in college and had some success and is a much more polished style of player, 3-and-D kind of a guy, even though he's a little bit of a tweener from a body type standpoint, but he was also barely 20, and coming into the league and or even 19, I think, maybe coming into the league. So I think that's something that has to be accounted for in terms of his development. I think sometimes we forget how young Moody is, because he, acts like a 30-year-old dude, even though he was a 21-year-old dude.
Yeah. You
can't penalize him for that.
His poor hairline.
You can't penalize somebody for that. And yeah, I mean, 22. I mean, so yeah, he wasn't even 20 when he got drafted by the Warriors. I guess, yeah, no, he was not. May 31, 2002. So yeah, he got drafted in 21? So he would have been 19. He wouldn't have been 20 until basically they got to the finals was when he turned 20. So, I mean, that's, you think about that, and I'm thinking, we always talk about Jonathan Kuminga, and I think that is fair, and all of the things that come with that. But I mean, gosh, you look at Kuminga. Yeah, Moses Moody is. I'm doing the math in my head here. He's like 4 months older than Kuminga. Mm-hmm. Like they're basically. I mean, they're basically the same age, both born in the same year, just 4 months apart. All right, Kyle, good stuff, my man. We'll end it on that note. Appreciate everybody who jumped in here on YouTube on this Saturday morning. We're back next week on the radio and on YouTube and Twitch, 10 to noon. We got the full show. Stretch run started last night. Excited about it, and we'll be on tomorrow. After Sunday Night Baseball, it's still going to be like 6:37, kind of in that range when the Warriors game ends. Warriors are playing the Spurs tomorrow, 4:00 Pacific time. And so we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And Kyle, we'll talk tomorrow night. Good stuff, my brother.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, we'll talk tomorrow night. Can't wait. And thank you to you, JD, and thank you to the chat as always.
Yeah, and enjoy your Saturday and most of your Sunday, and we'll talk to you tomorrow night right here, KNBR, the sports leader.